And are you refreshed? Good. Now what?
It's an honor and a pleasure to be in your presence live.
Or dead.
Thank you for that.
We're as dead as it gets.
So I chose a life of contrast.
Good.
It came to some difficulties with my parents I chose.
Yeah. That was pre-planned.
But you have been there with me in the woods. Whenever I've had darkness and despair, you've lifted me up and you've given me insight and intuition beyond anything I could have ever.
It's nice to know that the darkness and the despair really is the anomaly, isn't it? That it really is the pinching off. But before you know that, it doesn't feel like that, does it? It feels like it's in charge, and we know explanation helps, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So my parents were war traumatized, and but I always got answers, and even teachers didn't believe me, but I would come back and show them. I became very good at mathematics. I had a teacher that clearly saw my potential, which, again, I strike up to my ability to connect to Source.
Yeah.
And I've had possibilities to become a meditator, a deep meditator, and that's helped me through difficulties when I went to Virginia to care for my parents.
Quiet in your mind sometimes is the only relief. That's what meditation is about.
But it's always strong in the woods.
Say more.
Whenever I go into the forest or any natural place, I feel that same without even thinking about the meditation.
So the key is to get so that you can focus however you choose to, no matter where you are. Because otherwise it's a very conditional life you're living, which is very limited. That's why you chose difficult parents, so that you could show yourself that you don't need a feathered nest in order to align, because it's not a feathered world. And if you're going to move around in the world at all, you got to be stable regardless of what's going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I'll jump to modern day. About just before COVID started, the January of that year, I was called to this life coach who is a disciple of you, Dr. Tanya Chase, who introduced me to you and who I constantly listen to on YouTubes. And I joined, you had the San Francisco live meeting that unfortunately was canceled due to COVID. I used the credits as one of your, as one of the Abraham Now people told me, or Abraham people told me that there was something coming up, so I've been with you every Saturday morning since your beginning. And this cruise is here. Something I'm in California, I thought I would never want to go because there's everything we're going to, I've been to except for Catalina. And this has been quite an experience from the minute I started to plan for it to being here. And so my questions come down to resistance. And next to the stabilization, being able to be stable and no matter what the environment is, how do I let go of some of the resistance that holds me back from my allowance? My life coach does tapping that helps, but it seems like there may be something more, whether it's crying or whether it's more meditation. I'm hoping that you can give me some insights so that I can allow more. I'm definitely, things are coming into my, I'm allowing more and more things are coming in from my vortex, but I would like it to come in more.
I want to explain some things to you about you. And these are things that you know at some levels and maybe not so much at a conscious level. We liked your words, modern day. In other words, that's why we encouraged Esther to call the broadcast Abraham Now, because it's people from all around the world all kinds of different time zones. Some people are getting up in the middle of the night to play. And of course, some people are watching it after the fact. They're not participating in it live, but it is all happening now. And now is where all of your power is. So much so that it doesn't matter anything that has been before. Of course, everything that has been before is what caused you to create your vortex. And everything that has been before is in part the reason that you're responding to life in the way that you are. But now is such an important moment in time because it's the junction where you meet you. It's where you have the choice of being all of you or some pinched off version of you. But whatever is happening, it's happening now. And of course, these gatherings are in order to facilitate more like you to consciously decide that you want more of you to participate. And as you see different people come on the stage and they're radiating their exuberance for life, you can tell they're tuned in, tapped in, turned on. All of them is right there putting it all out for those to see. All right, so this is the part we want to tell you about you. You did deliberately choose to come into an environment that was not an easy path of non-resistance. It was a path of a lot of resistance. And you chose well. But we want to explain to you one of the side effects of that for you. And it caused you to be a constant thinker. You never let your guard down. You never allowed yourself to just relax and be a kid or just relax and be. You started trending really early on to manage things, to take care of things, to be in the right place at the right time. As a result, instead of coming more into harmony with who you are, you pinched more of that off. And we like to say that in this way to almost everybody. Most people are offering most of their vibration in response to what they're observing, and then they're offering their action and their words and their constant trying to figure things out in order to compensate for what they're not able to accomplish energetically. It's a classic example of just trying too hard. But the emphasis in trying is on the desire. In other words, you can't want too much, but you can try too hard. So you were born with enormous desire that just got a little bit of a slow start, and it caused you to trend so that even today, with all that you know, your first order of business is to really think something through. You're just going to wrestle it to the ground and kill it. You're going to figure it out. And you're a smart guy who can figure things out. That's one of the wonderful things that's come out of this. You showed yourself your ability to focus, which you weren't calling trending in those days, but things began to occur to you that took you further in mathematics. So much of what came to you came the hard way because of focus. But now that you understand the power of focus, if you can, in your now, just apply a little more relaxation, a little more ease and flow, a little more not needing to try so hard. It's like when you get into your vehicle, you don't ever have the urge to get under the hood and be part of the engine. That just doesn't occur to you because you know you're not part of the engine. And it's taken a long time for us to convince Esther that she is a pointer. She's the decider and the definer. She doesn't have to prove her worthiness through depletion and hard work. And you don't either, you see. So you trended and responded and calibrated to humans, to strong, forceful, disconnected humans for a long time. But that was then, and this is now. It's a whole different thing. Now, you're not going to give it up all of a sudden. No one does. No one stops trending. Do you know, if you've got a train going 120 miles an hour that way, and you decide that you want it to stop instantaneously and go 120 miles an hour that way, even if you could suddenly stop the train, and sometimes they do stop suddenly, it's really hard on the contents of the train. In other words, you really don't want to come to a screeching halt. You just want to take it easier by applying what you know. So you hear us, we're not eager to help you get rid of resistance. We just want you to understand it. And we are not ever going to blame resistance because it's what has honed this magnificent vibrational reality you've got going on. There isn't anything that we would change about anything that you have lived or are living except one thing. We would like it to be a little more fun for you now. We'd like it to be more fun for you now, which means we'd like you to ease up on yourself now, because there's something that you've decided. You've decided that I started out and I got sort of broken and I overcame it, but I want to explain to you that I was broken and maybe that I am still a little broken. And it's that needing to explain that is messing up the now. It's throwing resistance on the trail that just isn't necessary anymore. We used to offer an analogy, and it applies so perfectly here. Imagine that you're moving into an environment, into a room or some outdoor space, doesn't matter, and you're spewing a sort of red inky mist. You're just spewing an inky mist, and every step forward you take, you spew some more of it. So your atmosphere is always vague and cluttered and hard to see through. But if you would just take a few steps forward and not spew that mist, you'd come into some clear air pretty soon. And that's what deliberately letting go of resistance does. As you no longer keep moving it forward, pretty soon you're in that clear space where it doesn't hinder you at all. In fact, you'll forget about it, and it will surprise you how little of it you remember, because you don't keep it active by the restating of it. Anything that you don't continue to give your attention to doesn't cease to be. It just ceases to be one of your cooperative components. So let's say there's this memory that you remember, and there were a lot of them that were a lot the same. So it's sort of like one big cluttered memory. And as you focus on some aspect of it, you activate it in your now, so it stays current and it continues to be an easily accessible cooperative component. It's just a thought or a memory or an experience, but it continues to come to mind really often because you keep it active, because you keep yourself compatible with it. So as you focus on other things instead, our previous friend was talking a bit about that, as you focus upon other things instead, it doesn't cease to exist. It will always exist. You're just no longer a cooperative component to it, and its experience in your experience becomes dimmer and dimmer until it becomes a non-factor. Except that it's like it flips. The resistant part of it becomes a non-factor, and the benefit of it becomes the big factor. And then you find yourself, instead of remembering the disadvantage of that experience, you start feeling the true advantage of it, because it's the reason that you are who you are, and who you are is something.
Thank you.
Yeah. Seem manageable?
Yes.
Right now, it feels completely logical.
Yes.
Well, we offered that with powerful intention to appeal to one of the most logical minds we've ever encountered.
Thank you.